Today, I'm going to show you an anti-pattern that you can run into in React.js that can definitely cause issues in your applications. So here, we just have a list of items, a list of watches, because I'm a bit of a watch guy. But if I click on this red button here that it should add a watch to this list, you see that nothing happens. But if I click on the green button, you see that actually a couple of watches get added. If I do it again, I click on the red button a few times, and then I click the green button, we get a bunch of watches added. So what is actually going on here? Well, I just refreshed the page there to clear out the state, but let's go look at the code. And what you'll see here is I have my initial state of the first 3 watches in the list. But when I click on this incorrect button here, it's going to call this add watch incorrectly function, which is this function right here. And what you're going to see here is that what it does is it has this watches piece of state, and then it just pushes a new watch to that piece of state, and then it calls set watches with the watches. And what this effectively does here is it technically adds a watch to your watches piece of state, but when you set your watches here to trigger a re-render, it just sets it with its initial watches. It doesn't actually include the new watch when you call setState here in this example, because you're doing a direct mutation here, which is an anti-pattern in React. You don't want to mutate state directly. So we're just calling the .push method on this array. It would be the same thing if you called like a .pop method on an array that was state. You don't want to do that. Whereas in our green button here, we call add watch correctly, and this is going to do the right thing. To where we call the set watches function directly. We do not mutate the state directly whatsoever here. We pass in a function because anytime in React that you're going to set the state based on previous state, you're going to want to pass in a function, and React will automatically pass us the current watches, and it makes sure that we set the state correctly every time with the current state. And then all we do here with this function is we return a new array, a completely new array that is going to spread all the previous watches in, and it's going to add our new watch here. And then this will update the page with the correct watches, which is why we see the behavior of if I click correct way and I click it just once, we see that watch gets added immediately to our list correctly because we're not doing any state mutations. We're passing in a function here to the state setter and setting the state based on the previous watches correctly and adding in our new watch. But if we click the incorrect way here, nothing happens because we push a new watch to the list, but then we set the state with just the previous watches here. We're not actually setting the state with any new watches because this isn't actually updating the state in any way, at least during this render. We're still calling the set watches with the previous watches, so it's really just not doing anything. But then when we set the state correctly here, that's when we actually see that newly added watch to the list and we get kind of this weird behavior. So the TLDR here, don't mutate state directly in React. Really try to pay attention to when you are doing this, and also when you are setting state and it's based on the previous state, make sure to pass in a function so you can be certain that the previous state that you're setting that state on is indeed the previous state and it is correct. So avoid direct mutations in React and you can avoid this anti-pattern altogether.